How to score well in PTE Speaking Describe Image. Welcome back guys. In this video I'm going to share with you a simple method that you can follow to score well in Describe Image, plus some common mistakes made by students and some tips that you can follow to improve your scores in speaking. So guys, stay tuned. These are some testimonials from a few of my recent students who appeared in the IELTS and PTE exams. All of them fulfilled their requirements and some even exceeded their own expectations. Guys, if you need help with preparations and you want to score well in IELTS or PTE, contact me on my email. I teach both IELTS and PTE via Skype classes. My email is in the description and on the video. So contact me on my email and I'll see what I can do for you. Getting back to the PTE speaking. Before I discuss Describe Image, guys, these are the three things that you have to keep in mind while you're in the exam. The PTE speaking is scored on basis of three parameters. The first one is content, which is the matter of your speech. So whatever you're speaking, that is the content. The second one is fluency, which is the flow of your speech. Guys, the flow or the fluency in this case is the pace that you normally speak your native language with. So you don't have to speed it up, you don't have to slow it down. Just follow the same pace that you do in your native language. Third one is pronunciation. This is the way you speak your words. For example, this alphabet is pronounced, well, it is taught to pronounce as Z in my country. This is not a Z, it's a Z. So depending on how you pronounce your words is going to have an impact on your speaking score. So keep these three parameters in mind. These are the three things that would be looked at while giving you the scores in PTE speaking. So keep these in mind throughout your speaking test. Now getting back to the main topic, Describe Image. To understand what could be covered in an image, just go to Google and look for PTE Describe Image. Here you will see a lot of examples which illustrate the kind of questions that you might be getting in your exam. So it could be a bar graph, it could be a pie chart, it could be a line graph, it could be a combination of pie charts, it could be a map, it could be a process, it could be a simple diagram. So the image can literally be anything, guys. You have to be prepared for everything. And don't worry, I'm going to show you what you have to do in order to be prepared for everything. So guys, describe image. Now let's talk about the method that you can follow in describe image. This method contains only three parts. It's a very simple method, so keep these 3 points in mind. The first thing you should say is an introduction. Introduction is what the image describes. So whatever is given to you, whatever the image shows, that part is the introduction. In the introduction, for example this image, have a look at the bottom, the sides and the top. This should give you a fair idea of what the image is about. So in this case, this image is showing the layer time in a typical week. Now the introduction for this could be simple like, this is a bar graph which shows the layer time in a typical week enjoyed by males and females in different categories such as full-time employed, part-time employed, unemployed, retired, and the housewives. So that's the introduction. Just state what it is. I'll give you some more examples. This is a bar graph which shows the average number of hours spent on social media in 2014 by males and females who are students, self-employed, employed, and retired. This bar graph shows the frequency and distribution of different type of vehicles in Asia, Europe, and USA. This pie chart shows 4 different modes of commuting and their preference percentages. This line graph shows the year-wise comparison of different monthly expenses from 2015 to 2017. This is a map of Africa which shows the gorilla distribution among different parts. This is a bar graph which shows the money spent on transportation by different household income groups. This bar graph shows the Australia's percentage share of coal imports in different countries in 2005, 2010 and 2015. This line graph compares the sugar intake and obesity prevalence from 1980 to 2013 in the US. So guys, these are a few examples of what the introduction could be like. In 1 or 2 simple lines, just say what it is. The first 25 seconds that you have to look at the image, decide what the image is about. This is where you start your answer. So the first part, introduction. The second part, following introduction, is what I call the details. Now guys, in theory, details is everything you can see in this picture right here. But as you will understand by practice, in the given 40 seconds that you will give your answer, you cannot cover each and everything. And this is very one important thing that I will also mention later upon as well. You cannot cover each and every part of this in the details. So only pick what you can speak well. Remember, content, fluency, and pronunciation. The kind of answer you should be giving should have the best fluency and pronunciation possible, and it should cover the maximum amount of content you can, keeping your fluency and pronunciation intact. Guys, this is very important, and later on when I mention the common mistakes, this is actually one of them. I'll emphasize on that part as well. But keep this in mind, only pick up the content that you can easily speak. Okay, so let me give you an example of details in this case. So I'll start at the beginning. This is a bar graph which shows the layer time in a typical week for males and females in different categories such as full-time employed, part-time employed, unemployed, retired, and housewives. So that was the introduction. Now, moving on to the next part, the details. What I would say here is something like, in case of unemployed and retired categories, both males and females enjoyed about 80 hours per week of layer time. In case of full-time employed females, part-time employed females, and the housewives, they enjoyed somewhere from 35 to 50 hours of layer time every week. The full-time employed males enjoyed about 45 hours of layer time every typical week. So this is my details. Introduction and details. Now guys, I did not mention every single number by itself. I did not say for an unemployed the males is 85 hours, for females it's 75 hours. It's way too confusing to think about in 25 seconds. So pick up only limited content. You can summarize everything you're going to say, like I mentioned in unemployed and retired parts. So I combine them both, saying it is about 80 hours. Now it is not exact, but the only place I would lose marks would be in the content part, not the fluency and pronunciation. I'll get back to this in the common mistakes section as well, but keep this in mind. You don't have to be exact on every number, every digit, every percentage. Okay, stick to the content that you can speak well. Alright, I'll give you some more examples of the details. In this case, I can say something like the male and female students spent about 6 hours per week on social media in 2014, whereas in case of retired male and female, they spent less than 1 hour. The employed males and females spent anywhere from 1 to 2 hours on social media, and the self employed males and females spent from 2 to 4 hours on the media. In this case, I can say something like the distribution of vehicles in case of sedans had the maximum frequency in all the three continents, Asia, Europe, and the USA, standing at about 80%. Europe led the track in sports cars at more than 25% frequency. In case of SUVs, Asia and USA had about 30% frequency, significantly higher than Europe. In case of wagons, all the three frequencies were about the same for all the continents, standing at about 10%, and only Asia had a hybrid frequency, standing at about 5%. In this case, you can say something like the metro was the most preferred mode of commuting, where 42% people preferred to travel through metro. Bike and local bus stood at a similar percentage at about 24%. That was the number it was preferenced by the commuters. And car was the least preferred mode of commuting with 11% preference. In this case, the answer could be something like the monthly expense on online ticket booking started at about 500 rupees in 2015, but the number rose significantly to about 1500 rupees in 2017. Online mobile recharge started at about 1000 rupees in 2015 but declined continuously throughout the period, reaching at about 400 rupees in 2017. Online food ordering was at the top throughout the period, started at about 1500 rupees and ended at about 1700 rupees. In this case, you can say something like this map of Africa is completely green in color, in which the middle part shows the western lowland gorilla distribution in yellow color. From the middle, on the west hand side, very close to the middle as well, you can see a small percentage of mountain gorilla and eastern lowland gorilla population. So guys, these are a few examples that you can take for the details part. Remember, I did not cover each and every point, not each and every percentage, each and every figure, each and every value, and you don't have to as well. Remember, content, fluency, and pronunciation. In case of describe image, this is only for describe image, you get 5 marks for the content. You're gonna get 5 scores for the fluency and 5 for pronunciation. So keep it in mind that you're getting more scores for fluency and pronunciation combined compared to just content. So don't try to be exact. I'll cover this in common mistakes as well. The reason I'm repeating it over and over again is because this is one of the very common mistakes that my students make, and I want you to avoid this. So pick only that amount of content that you can easily elaborate. Okay, moving on. After the details, the last part is what I call conclusion. In conclusion, you simply give an overall summary of the image. So what do you exactly notice from the image? To give you an example, Okay, let's start with this one. To conclude, Africa had a very small amount of gorilla distribution, where the highest were the western lowland gorillas. The conclusion for this could be, although online ticket booking increased towards the monthly expenses, but the online food ordering stayed at the top with the maximum amount of monthly expense. Overall, in my opinion, people prefer to travel by metro because it's a better public transportation than all of the others. Overall, we can see that in case of any continent, most people prefer to drive sedans. Overall, or to conclude, we can say that students are is the category that is most addicted to social media. To conclude, we can say that unemployed and retired people had the most amount of leisure time, whereas employed full-time people spend the least amount of time relaxing. So guys, three things in mind: introduction, details, and conclusion. In introduction, cover what it is, simply what the image shows. In details, only pick the content that you can elaborate well. And in the conclusion, just give an overall summary of the paragraph. And that's really it. Now guys, moving on to the common mistakes part. Now, this is a part that I really like to cover in my videos, and I'll make sure that I cover this part in all my other videos as well. This actually seems to help a lot of people because they are kind of making the same mistakes that other students are making. So it's very good practice to highlight them. Now, the first very common mistake that most students make is they try to cover too much data. They focus too much on content. For example, most students would look at this, freak out, and they would try to cover each and everything in the given amount of time. Guys, like I said earlier, 40 seconds, 25 seconds is firstly not enough time to think about all the numbers. Whether it's 35, 36, 37, I'm not sure. And in 25 seconds, I'm not gonna get all the numbers correct for all of them. So just round it up. You are thinking too much about the content. This is an average of 40, this is an average of 40, this is an average of 80. I'm just rounding it up. You don't have to think too much about content. If you were going to cover all the numbers, all the figures in this part, in the details part, you cannot do it in 40 seconds. So guys, keep this in mind. You don't have to cover every number, every figure, every percentage. Remember, I told you earlier, you get 5 marks for content, 5 for fluency, and 5 for pronunciation. Now, if you focus on perfect content, it's likely that you will lose marks in fluency and pronunciation. Because if I start thinking about what number this is, naturally I'm gonna lag in my flow. I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna think, I'm gonna correct myself, and that's what's gonna cost me more marks in fluency and pronunciation compared to just content. So keep it in mind, just speak what you can elaborate well. Remember guys, you don't have to describe everything, but whatever you do describe, do it well. Okay. The next one is most students try to correct themselves whenever they make a mistake. Let me give you an example. If I was describing the details for this chart and if I said something like, in case of full-time employed people, females enjoy about 40 hours of leisure time every week. Oops. Females enjoy 37 hours of leisure time every week in case of employed full-time. Now guys, here I made a mistake. I corrected myself, so I lost marks in fluency and pronunciation because I stopped. Now remember, when you make a mistake, you're only gonna lose marks in content. 37 or 40 is the difference in content, but you are not going to lose any scores over here. This is what you have to keep in mind, that whenever you stop, whenever you correct yourself, whenever you think about what you're going to speak next, whenever you interrupt your fluency, you're going to lose marks in these two. Not, and compared to while just making a mistake, you'll be only losing marks in content. Very, very important, guys. It's better if you lose marks just over here compared to these two. Keep your fluency and pronunciation intact. This is going to bring a major difference in the outcome. I'll actually give you an example of this. This is one of my students. Now, if you take a look over here, guys, she scored a perfect 90 in oral fluency, although she lacked in pronunciation. But see, the marks in speaking are 72. Your fluency, your pronunciation combined would have a more and profound impact on your speaking score. So keep this in mind. First of all, don't try to cover too much data because that's going to impact your fluency and pronunciation. Secondly, don't correct yourself if you make a mistake. Just keep speaking, continue your speech, keep your fluency and pronunciation as a priority, and you will score well in speaking. The third mistake, now this is not that common, but it's still something that I can see in a significant number of students. They speak the lines which don't make any sense. Their lines are just simply lines. They do not make any sense. To give you an example, they would say something like, the employed full-time 40 hours males, 35 hours females. Employed part-time 40 hours females. Now guys, these are just simply names and numbers put together. These are not grammatically correct lines. You are not saying something that the computer can understand. Well, it's not something that a human can understand either. So guys, if your lines don't make any sense, you're going to suffer through the speaking scores. Your lines have to make sense. It doesn't have to be a high vocabulary, it doesn't have to be profound, you don't have to say something stylish, but it has to be a complete grammatically correct line. Okay, keep it simple, but keep it straightforward and clear. The computer should be able to pick up what you are trying to say. If it doesn't, you're going to lose marks. It's simple as that. Okay, so these are the three common mistakes that I notice with most students. So keep these three in mind. Hopefully you won't repeat them. Okay guys, so the tips on how you can improve the describe image part. Now, I don't have too many of them, but there's one that has worked perfectly with most of my students, and I hope it would work with you as well. That is to practice every image type. What I mean by that is, schedule your time. Let's say today is the day one, I'm going to practice describe image. So the first day, all you should do is different types of bar graphs. So today, I'm only going to focus on bar graphs. So this is my first one. Speak this bar graph 5, 6, 7, 10 times, as long as it takes to get the fluency and pronunciation the best they can be. Record your answers, repeat them, listen to them carefully, and then try it over and over again until you see the improvements for yourself. This is the only way you can improve in describe image. Today, focus on just bar graphs. Practice at least 15 questions of the same type, but try them 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Don't just do it once, do it multiple times so that you can record and listen to the improvement yourself. So the day 1 can be for bar graphs, day 2 can be for pie charts, day 3 can be for maps, the day 4 can be for simple diagrams, day 5 can be for processes. So simply distribute and prioritize your day for different tasks. This is a method that has worked perfectly for most of my students, and I hope this would work for you as well. Guys, at the end of the day, it is all about practice. If you want to score well in speaking, practice as much as you can. Nothing would get you more scores in speaking than just by speaking. So keep speaking, keep talking, practice your general English, and practice this as well. Guys, if you learned anything new from my video, like usual, please like and share it so others will benefit from it too. Additionally, if you have any questions or if you would like me to take a look at your answers or walk me through your any other topics or modules in IELTS or PT, comment below. If you are in search for personal classes, contact me on my email. It's right here. I take both the IELTS classes and PT classes on Skype. And yeah, that's all for now. Stay tuned for more good stuff. Thanks for watching.